The bold and the beautiful, the final bargain in the visitation room. It began like every other visitation day, but everyone in that sterile room knew something was about to break. Luna sat across from the glass, her hands trembling yet her eyes sharp with purpose. Weeks of quiet desperation had burned into strategy. She wasn't just visiting anymore, she was negotiating for her life. Luna knew exactly how to use what little leverage she had left. Her voice came steady, layered with that dangerous mix of fear and determination that can change destinies. She told Will she needed guarantees, a medical review, better conditions in the prison hospital, access to a real lawyer, not one assigned by the state. And, more than anything, she demanded that Will be there when she gave birth. She wasn't asking for sympathy. She was drawing a line. Will could see it in her eyes. This wasn't a plea. It was a pact. Will Spencer had spent his entire life in the shadow of powerful men, and none loomed larger than his father, Bill Spencer. But that day in the visitation room, something inside him shifted. Luna's words hit him like truth finally surfacing. He had a choice: either keep playing the obedient son or become the man he needed to be. She told him she didn't want his pity. She wanted his protection. And the unborn child she carried needed a future that wasn't stained by betrayal. Will hesitated. He'd always admired Bill's ruthlessness in business, but now that same ruthlessness felt suffocating. Bill had already made it clear Luna was a liability. The scandal, the headlines, the risk, it was too much for the Spencer name. Bill had orchestrated deals, manipulated evidence, even pulled strings within the justice system to keep his empire spotless. Luna was collateral damage, but Will wasn't ready to accept that. Then came the turning point. Somewhere deep within the prison system, a monitoring device captured more than it was supposed to. A recording an offhand conversation, a mistake by a guard, or maybe something planted intentionally surfaced and landed in the hands of the wrong people. It revealed a plan, one sharp and deliberate, a new arrow aimed straight at Bill Spencer himself. The recording suggested that someone had been maneuvering behind the scenes, setting up Bill for a fall, using Luna's imprisonment as bait in a much larger game. Suddenly, everything changed. Luna wasn't just a scandal. She was the center of a power struggle that could take down Bill Spencer. When Will heard the recording, the decision that had been tearing at him became crystal clear. He wasn't just protecting Luna anymore. He was protecting the truth. He vowed to bring her out, no matter the cost. He told her through the glass, voice breaking with resolve, that he would get her out, that he would raise their child, and that no one, not even Bill, would stand in his way. Bill, of course, found out. He always did. When he confronted Will, it was like watching a reflection of himself in a younger, more idealistic mirror. Bill mocked him for letting emotions cloud judgment. He reminded him that love is weakness, that business is war, and that sentiment has no place in survival. But Will had heard those lessons his entire life, and for the first time, he rejected them. He told Bill that maybe survival wasn't enough anymore. Maybe doing what was right mattered more. Bill's fury was volcanic. He threatened to cut Will off, to strip him of inheritance, status, every ounce of privilege the Spencer name had afforded him. But Will stood firm. He told his father he didn't need the money, the company, or even the name. He only needed the truth and the family he chose to protect. Then, as if destiny couldn't resist turning the knife deeper, the leaked recording made its way to the media. Suddenly, Bill's empire started shaking. The recording hinted that Bill had authorized certain manipulations in Luna's case, legal strings pulled to ensure her imprisonment. The revelation suggested not only that he'd known about evidence tampering, but that he might have sanctioned it. The powerful tycoon who had built his fortune on control was now losing it, one scandal at a time. Will saw his father cornered and desperate. Bill tried to control the narrative, to buy silence, to spin the story. But every move he made only tightened the noose. Meanwhile, Luna's health was declining in prison. Her pregnancy had become complicated, and every delay risked both her life and the baby's. Will went public, declaring his intention to take full custody of the child once it was born and to fight for Luna's release. He faced cameras, questions, accusations. But behind the chaos, there was something pure, a man standing up against the very machine that built him. Bill retaliated in ways only he could. He froze accounts, hired private investigators, manipulated court proceedings. He reminded everyone who he was. But Will didn't back down. He visited Luna every chance he got, bringing her updates, hope, and eventually the evidence that could clear her. The bond between them grew stronger, unbreakable, built not on passion or pity, but on survival and truth. And then came the breaking point, the confrontation that everyone whispered about, but no one expected to see. One night, in Bill's office, dim lights, heavy silence, storm clouds outside. Will walked in. His hands were shaking, his voice low but unwavering. In his hand, a gun. A single weapon, a desperate man's leverage against a titan who never thought anyone could stand against him. "Dad," Will said, "I'm done talking. You're going to save Luna. You're going to fix what you broke." Bill looked at him, unflinching. "You don't have the stomach for this, son. Put it down." But Will didn't. His voice cracked, raw from nights of sleeplessness and guilt. "I'm not your son if I let this happen. You can't keep deciding who lives and who doesn't. You fix this, or I'll end it right here." The gun was shaking, but his resolve was not. He wasn't bluffing anymore. Bill's eyes, cold and calculating, flickered with something rare fear. Not of death, but of losing control. He realized in that moment that he had pushed too far. The son who once idolized him now hated what he'd become. The silence stretched long enough to feel eternal, and then slowly Bill nodded. "Fine," he said. "I'll do it. But if you pull that trigger, you'll never come back from it." Will lowered the gun, but the damage was already done. The fracture between father and son could never be repaired. That night marked the end of one era and the beginning of another. Bill called in favors, moved money, pulled back his influence. Luna was transferred to a medical facility. Within weeks, she gave birth to a son. Will was there, just as she demanded from the start. He held his child, tears running freely down his face. But the world outside hadn't forgotten. The leaked recording, the scandal, the betrayal, everything now lived in the court of public opinion. Bill Spencer's empire was bleeding. Investors backed out, allies turned silent, enemies circled. Yet, in the chaos, Will stood tall. He didn't need his father's power anymore. He had his own. Luna's freedom became a symbol of something larger, of redemption, of defiance, of love that refused to die even in the face of corruption. And Will became something no one expected, a Spencer with a conscience. He didn't just save Luna, he redefined what it meant to carry that name. Bill watched from afar, his kingdom collapsing, his legacy rewritten by the son he underestimated. The final image burned into the memories of everyone who had witnessed it was Will walking out of the hospital with Luna and the baby, sunlight breaking through the morning haze. For once, there was no boardroom, no deal, no manipulation, just truth. But in the world of the bold and the beautiful, peace never lasts long. Somewhere behind the scenes, a new player was already listening to the echoes of that leaked recording, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. The arrow that had once aimed for Bill might just find another target soon, and this time, no one would see it coming. Aftermath, a family reborn, a dynasty in decline. The world saw the photo. Will Spencer carrying his newborn child in one arm, Luna beside him, fragile but free. Headlines hailed it as a miracle. From prison to peace, the Spencer redemption. But beneath that polished narrative, the wounds were still fresh and the war was far from over. Luna was weak. Months of incarceration, medical neglect, and stress had worn her thin. She smiled for the cameras, but in private, she suffered from panic attacks, trauma responses, and sleepless nights. Will tried to shield her, to create a bubble of safety, but he was new to fatherhood and unprepared for the emotional minefield of healing a broken person. They moved into a small, secluded house outside LA nowhere near the Spencer estate. Will cut ties with Bill entirely. No calls, no visits. He even turned down the inheritance Bill tried to sneak into a trust. Pride, integrity, and anger kept him grounded. He didn't want blood money funding the life he was building with Luna, but that choice came with consequences. Will faced financial strain quickly. Raising a newborn, paying medical bills, hiring legal representation to keep Luna's name clean, it all added up. And Bill, ever the puppet master, ensured that Will's job offers quietly dried up. Spencer Publications blackballed anyone who tried to hire him. Too much baggage, they said. Too much drama. Luna saw it all happening. She knew Bill was punishing them quietly, methodically. She wanted to speak out, go public, reveal everything, but Will refused. We won the battle. Let's not start another war. But Luna couldn't sit idle. She began documenting everything. The months in prison, the manipulation, the recording that almost got buried, the quiet threats from Bill's people. She wrote a blog under a pseudonym. It went viral. Survivors reached out. Journalists came knocking. One high-profile podcast did a feature episode on the Luna tapes. Suddenly, Luna was no longer just a victim, she was a voice, a symbol. But symbols attract enemies. One night, Luna's car was run off the road. No injuries, just a message. Will stormed into Spencer HQ, demanding to see his father. Security turned him away. Cameras caught him yelling at the building like a man on fire. The footage circulated within hours. Bill released a carefully worded statement denying involvement, but called his son troubled and easily manipulated. Will snapped. He returned home, shaken and spiraling. Luna begged him to let it go. He wants to break you. Don't let him, but Will couldn't breathe under the weight of it anymore. He had sacrificed everything, his legacy, his name, his safety for the truth. And still, his father had the power to turn the world against him. That night, Will took the same gun he once aimed at his father and locked himself in his office. The baby cried in the next room. Luna banged on the door. Will didn't pull the trigger, but something inside him died anyway. When he emerged, he was different. Colder, clearer. If we're going to survive this, he told Luna, we stop playing defense. He contacted an old friend, someone in media law. Together, they launched a civil suit against Spencer Publications, not just for Luna's wrongful imprisonment, but for defamation, character assassination, and corporate intimidation. It shook the industry. Bill responded with fury. He hired an army of lawyers. He bought out 2 of the networks covering Luna's story. He tried to buy the Judge. But this time, public sentiment wasn't on his side. Will had the people? And in a courtroom pact with press, Luna took the stand and told her full story unfiltered. What followed was a rare moment of real justice. The court ruled in favor of Luna and Will. Damages in the millions. A public apology. A court order for Spencer Publications to undergo internal audits and restructure leadership. Bill remained chairman, but his grip had weakened. Shareholders grew restless. Allies distanced themselves. For a moment, it seemed like the war was finally over. Luna's name was cleared. Will was being offered media deals, book contracts, a potential Netflix series, but they both knew better. Bill wasn't the kind of man to fade into the background. And they were right. A new figure emerged, Victoria Lang, an ex-associate of Bill's with a quiet vendetta of her own. She had been ousted from Spencer years earlier, her innovations credited to Bill, her career ruined. She saw Will as both a threat to Bill and a useful tool. Victoria reached out. She offered Will a deal, partner with her to take over Spencer Publications from the inside. She had shares. She had dirt. She had allies on the board. Together, they could topple Bill completely. Will hesitated. He wanted peace, but Luna urged him to take the opportunity. You'll never be free until he's out of your shadow. And so began the next chapter, a hostile takeover of one of the most powerful media empires in America. Behind the scenes, Luna struggled with being both a new mother and a public figure. Paparazzi stalked her. Every smile she didn't show, every mistake she made magnified. Her trauma was used as content. She wanted to disappear, but the fight kept dragging her back in. Will, once the man who refused to play dirty, began making choices that scared her. He leaked internal documents. He threatened board members. He manipulated headlines. He was becoming more like Bill every day. When Luna confronted him, he said quietly, "This is what it takes to win." Luna stepped back, afraid for the first time not of Bill, but of the man she loved. In a climactic boardroom vote months later, Victoria and Will gained control of Spencer Publications. Bill was forced to step down. Cameras caught the moment he walked out of the building, alone. But victory came with a cost. Will had no time for Luna, no time for their child. His days were filled with board meetings and late-night calls with lawyers. He started drinking, not heavily, just enough to feel like Bill. Luna packed her bags. She didn't leave, not yet, but she handed Will a letter. "If you become him, then I lost you a long time ago." Will read it alone in his office, surrounded by portraits of the empire he now ruled. The final shot. Will at the top floor of Spencer Tower, holding his child, staring out at the city. Behind him, the shadow of Bill Spencer still lingered just slightly out of